Good morning, my little lover. I miss you so much. Miss your little face. Miss your sleepy little wander in the morning when you wander out into the kitchen and your body language just screams, "Love me." And I do, more than you may know. I was thinking about our first fancy date here the other day. What an evening. I mean, it truly was. I was thinking when I miss you so much, and you miss me so much, turn this on. You'll hear my voice and relive this enchanted evening that we had together. Because there's moments in life that arrive without warning. Moments that seem ordinary while they're unfolding, yet later become treasures so vivid that the memory feels brighter than the day itself. This is the story of one of those nights. A night filled with candlelight and violins. A night where an ancient church became a palace. A night where Pittsburgh shimmered like a city carved from diamonds. A night where a waiter named John accidentally became part of our legend. But most of all was a night spent with the woman I call Baby. And though the quartet was magnificent, though the city was breathtaking, and though the dessert was unforgettable, the greatest beauty I witnessed that evening was sitting right next to me. This is the story of the night of a million candles. There are nights that simply happen, the nights that somehow stay, etched forever in the heart, long after all the years have slipped away. And of all the treasured memories that God has granted me, that night beneath a million flames remains a masterpiece to see. The city wore its evening clothes beneath the darkened sky. His twilight brushed the rooftops where the rivers wandered by. Downtown Pittsburgh stood majestic like a kingdom forged of light, awaiting us to step inside the wonder of our night. The church stood there before us, ancient stone and sacred grace, a monument to centuries that time could not erase. Its towering walls held countless prayers that generations knew. Yet somehow on that evening, all the beauty pointed back to you. For every pew and window frame was touched by candlelight. A million tiny stars had come to earth to bless our night. Their golden glow danced slowly through the arches overhead. Like heaven's own cathedral, it descended there and said, the shadows moved like poetry across the ancient stone, as if the building breathed a hymn in whispers of its own. Each flickering flame painted portraits on the vaulted ceiling high, like constellations learning how to live beneath the sky. Then through the sea of candlelight I turned and saw your face, and suddenly the church itself seemed secondary to your grace. For baby, on that evening, you were beauty undefined, the kind that leaves a man completely speechless in his mind. The dress you wore belonged within a royal ballroom's hall. the sort of gown that artists spend a lifetime trying to recall. Elegant beyond compare, enchanting from the start, a living work of art that stole the breath from my own heart. You walked beside me effortlessly, regal in your stride, and every passerby seemed drawn to beauty they could not hide. Compliments arrived like rain from strangers passing through, as though the whole world had agreed to celebrate just you. One smiled and said you looked like royalty come down to walk the earth. Another stared in disbelief at such uncommon worth. And standing there beside you, I could scarcely help but grin, for somehow fate had chosen me to be the man you're with. The quartet took their places, then beneath the candle glow, and silence swept the sanctuary, row by row by row. And bows were drawn across the strings with delicate precision, and music filled the sacred space like some celestial vision. The violin soared upward like a flock of silver birds, expressing things too beautiful and deep for simple words. The viola wove its velvet threads through harmonies divine, while the cello sang of ancient truths beyond the reach of time. The melodies would rise and fall like moonlit ocean waves, then drift through candlelit cathedrals, crypts, and forgotten graves. At times, the music whispered soft as snowflakes in the air, then thundered with a majesty that seemed to shake with prayer. Each note became a brushstroke on an endless canvas bright, painting scenes of kingdoms lost and lovers reunited. I closed my eyes and could have sworn the centuries slipped away, as if we'd wandered into Europe on some long forgotten day. The music wrapped around us like a finely woven thread, binding every memory to the moment still ahead. And seated there beside you, with your hand held close to mine, I thought that heaven surely must feel like something this divine. When the final note descended and the last vibration died, the silence that remained seemed almost wholly deep inside. The audience applauded, but I barely heard the sound, for my attention still was fixed on the treasure I had found. Then onward to Mount Washington we traveled through the night, the city slowly opening beneath us into sight. And there below Pittsburgh appeared in all her shining fame, a sea of jewels and golden stars that called us by our names. The rivers wound through downtown like ribbons forged of glass, reflecting countless city lights as evening moments passed. The bridges glowed like necklaces stretched gently through the dark, each one another radiant and unforgettable spark. The skyline stood triumphant against the velvet night, a kingdom built of steel and dreams, and windows glowing bright. And sitting there beside you with that breathtaking view, I found it hard deciding what was more beautiful, Pittsburgh or you. Then entered our waiter John, a legend all his own, whose voice emerged so deep it seemed to vibrate through the stone. He greeted us with eye contact that never seemed to end, the sort that made us wonder if he'd become our lifelong friend. He studied us intently with a gaze both proud and strong, maintaining it so perfectly it felt a little long. And in a voice resembling bass notes sung from cavern walls, he nearly serenaded us while listing specials and all the recalls. The salmon, John dramatically announced in his smooth and velvet tone, as if he'd personally raised the fish and watched its journey home. The menu wasn't spoken, so much as performed with all his flair, and somehow we fought laughter while pretending not to stare. Each sentence seemed a symphony, each entree got a song, while eye contact continued at a level slightly strong. Yet somehow his peculiar style became part of the delight, another treasured chapter from that wonderfully perfect night. Then came the grand finale, our dessert beyond compare, a masterpiece of sweetness that seemed heaven-sent and rare. Fried angel food cake arrived adorned in a sweet strawberry glaze, with ice cream nestled perfectly to earn our endless praise. The warm and cool together formed a harmony so sweet, like finding one more movement in the evening's grand repeat. The strawberries sparkled ruby red beneath the candle gleam, as though the dessert itself had wandered from a dream. We lingered there unwilling for the evening's end to come, reluctant to surrender all the magic we'd become. For some nights pass unnoticed and are quickly swept away, but some become forever from the moment that they stay. And when I think of candlelight and violins that soar, of ancient churches filled with songs and beauty at their core, of city lights reflected in the rivers down below, of laughter shared with baby while the evening seemed to glow, I thank the Lord who guided us through every winding mile, who filled that night with music, grace, and your enchanting smile. For if I lived 1,000 years and wrote of all I've seen, I'd still recall that evening as the night that felt a dream. The quartet played its melodies, the candles burned above, the skyline wore its diamonds, and my heart was filled with love. And seated there beside a princess heaven gave to me, I learned that fairy tales are sometimes living history. Years from now, when the details of ordinary days have faded, I know this memory will hang in there, as vivid could be. I'll remember all the candles. I'll remember asking you to close your eyes. I'll remember the violins in that wild ceiling. I'll remember 1 trillion lights of Pittsburgh's downtown glittering, reflecting on the river. I remember laughing with baby over John's dramatic menu performance, fried angel cake and strawberry glaze, and more than anything else, I remember looking across that candlelit church, seeing a woman who seemed to step from the pages of a fairy tale. A woman whose beauty very literally stopped other people's conversations. A woman whose kindness outshines even her beauty. A woman whose presence transformed an amazing evening into an unforgettable one. The candles eventually burned out. The quartet played its final note. The restaurant closed its doors. The city lights dimmed with the coming dawn. But the memory remains. And every time I revisit that evening in my heart, I find myself thanking God once again. Not for the church, not for the music, not for the view, but for baby. Because when I think back on the night of a million candles, I realize the brightest light in the room was never the candles at all. It was you. Love you, baby.